Hi, welcome to my channel, Reader Woman. My name's Judy, and let's talk my whole idea for first chapter readings. I'm not saying it's a bust, but I've come to the conclusion that first chapters vary so much between book to book, it doesn't make sense. So I can't guarantee that I will read the complete full chapter, nor, I don't know, it may come down to maybe pages, time, I don't know. But the name of this could definitely be changing because I am not very far into it and it's not really working for me. Tonight I thought that I would read an excerpt, yes, an excerpt from The Queen's Gambit. And thinking about it, why didn't I start with The Queen's Gambit, for crying out loud? I did a review video about both the book and the Netflix series, so I don't know. Now after, I don't know, 2 or 3 of these things, we're coming back to The Queen's Gambit, and which I highly recommend if you haven't read it. And it is currently free on Kindle Unlimited. So, chapter 1. Beth learned of her mother's death from a woman with a clipboard. The next day, her picture appeared in the Herald Leader. The photograph, taken on the porch of the gray house on Maplewood Drive, showed Beth in a simple cotton frock. Even then, she was clearly plain. A legend under the picture read, "Orphaned by yesterday's pileup on New Circle Road. Elizabeth Harmon surveys a troubled future. Elizabeth 8 was left without family by the crash, which killed 2 and injured others. At home alone at the time, Elizabeth learned of the accident shortly before the photo was taken. She will be well looked after, authorities say." In the Methuen home in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, Beth was given a tranquilizer twice a day. So were all the other children, too, even their dispositions, unquote. Beth's disposition was all right, as far as anyone could see, but she was glad to get the little pill. It loosened something deep in her stomach and helped her doze away the tense hours in the orphanage. Mr. Ferguson gave them pills in a little paper cup. Along with the green one that evened the disposition, there were orange and brown ones for building a strong body. The children had to line up to get them. The tallest girl was the black one, Jolene. She was 12. On her second day, Beth stood behind her in vitamin line, and Jolene turned to look down at her, scowling. "You a real orphan or a bastard?" Beth did not know what to say. She was frightened. They were at the back of the line, and she was supposed to stand there until they got up to the window where Mr. Ferguson stood. Beth had heard her mother call her father a bastard, but she didn't know what it meant. "What's your name, girl?" Jolene asked. "Beth." "Your mother dead? What about your daddy?" Beth stared at her. The words mother and dead were unbearable. She wanted to run, but there was no place to run to. "Your folks," Jolene said in a voice that was not unsympathetic. "They dead?" Beth could find nothing to say or do. She stood in line terrified, waiting for the pills. "You're all greedy cocksuckers." It was Ralph in the boys' ward who shouted that. She heard it because she was in the library and it had a window facing boys. She had no mental image for cocksucker, and the word was strange, but she knew from the sound of it they would wash his mouth out with soap. They'd done it to her for damn, and Mother had said damn all the time. The barber made her sit absolutely still in the chair. "If you move, you might just lose an ear." But there was nothing jovial in his voice. Beth sat as quietly as she could, but it was impossible to keep completely still. It took him a very long time to cut her hair into the bangs they all wore. She tried to occupy herself by thinking of that word, cocksucker. All she could picture was a bird, like a woodpecker, but she felt that was wrong. The janitor was fatter on one side than on the other. His name was Scheibel, Mr. Scheibel. One day she was sent to the basement to clean the blackboard erasers by clomping them together, and she found him sitting on a metal stool near the furnace, scowling over a green and white checkerboard in front of him. But where the checkers should be, there were little plastic things in funny shapes. Some were larger than others. There were more of the small ones than any of the others. The janitor looked at her. She left in silence. On Friday, everybody ate fish, Catholic or not. It came in squares, breaded with a dark brown dry crust and covered with thick orange sauce, like bottled French dressing. The sauce was sweet and terrible, but the fish beneath it was worse. The taste of it nearly gagged her. But you had to eat every bite, or Mrs. Deerdorf would be told about you, and you wouldn't get adopted. Some children got adopted right off. A 6-year-old named Alice had come in a month after Beth and was taken in 3 weeks by some nice-looking couple. Some nice-looking people with an accent. They walked through the ward on the day they came for Alice. Beth had wanted to throw her arms around them because they looked happy to her, but she turned away when they glanced at her. Other children had been there a long time and knew they would never leave. They called themselves lifers. Beth wondered if she was a lifer. Gym was bad and volleyball was the worst. Beth could never hit the ball right. She would slap at it fiercely or push at it with stiff fingers. Once, sorry, my Kindle. It doesn't always move. Sorry, back to the book. Hurt her fingers so much that it swelled up afterwards. Most of the girls laughed and shouted when they played, but Beth never did. Jolene was the best player by far. It wasn't just that she was older and taller. She always knew exactly what to do, and when the ball came high over the net, she would station herself under it without having to shout at the others to keep out of her way, and then leap up and spike it down with a long, smooth movement of her arm. The team that had Jolene always won. The week after Beth hurt her finger, Jolene stopped her when gym ended, and the others were rushing back to the showers. "Let me show you something," Jolene said. She held her hands up with long fingers open and slightly flexed. "You do it like this." She bent her elbows and pushed her hands up smoothly, cupping an imaginary ball. "Try it." Beth tried it awkwardly at first. Jolene showed her again, laughing. Beth tried a few more times and did it better. Then Jolene got the ball and had Beth catch it with her fingertips. After a few times, it got to be easy. "You work on that now, here," Jolene said, and ran off to the shower. Beth worked on it over the next week, and after that she did not mind volleyball at all. She did not become good at it, but it wasn't something she was afraid of anymore. Every Tuesday, Miss Graham sent Beth down after arithmetic to do the erasers. It was considered a privilege, and Beth was the best student in the class, even though she was the youngest. She did not like the basement. It smelled musty, and she was afraid of Mr. Scheibel. But she wanted to know more about the game he played on that board by himself. One day she went over and stood near him, waiting for him to move a piece. The one he was touching was the one with a horse's head on a little pedestal. After a second, he looked up at her with a frown of irritation. "What do you want, child?" he said. Normally she fled from any human encounter, especially with grown-ups, but this time she did not back away. "What's that game called?" she asked. He stared at her. "You should be upstairs with the others." She looked at him levelly. Something about this man and the steadiness with which he played his mysterious game helped her to hold tightly to what she wanted. "I don't want to be with the others," she said. "I want to know what game you're playing." He looked at her more closely. Then he shrugged. "It's called chess." and we will leave it at that. Great story. And anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Keep reading. We'll talk soon.